Hi, welcome to Olympus team, and here we are going with David Pimping, DPP Channel, and we are going to talk about BT8 meta. Um, he can tell us the experience he have in Singapore playing this meta, and let's see what he can tell us about it. So we have this tier list, and it's a little bit different. Uh, uh,
It's different for
for
from your tier list
yes,
because the difference of the players here and there.
yes,
For example, we put the armor rush in the highest tier because talking to people here, there are a lot of people. There are many of them that thinks that armor rush is one of the best decks on the meta because the players they have. So here we have the super aggro and control more or less. For example, here in BT7 with the new restriction, the most powerful decks was the blue hybrids without level 6, only till level 5.
and
And
we want to know what do you think about this, o sea, the aggro there in Singapore.
Sure. Okay, so I can pretty much share like in Singapore, right? We do have armor players as well, but the only difference is that we do have a lot of Mastermon players.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mastermon in BT8, right? They receive the Health Del Scythe. I mean the Health Del Scythe, which actually minus 6k DP and then spawn a 6k DP below Digimon from the drop zone. And that actually hurt a lot for the armor matchups because they retain the minus DP. So when they go down to their level 3s, they actually hit 0 DP and then they die instantly. So I would say compared to the meta in Singapore, we do have a much more Mastermon players. That's why the armor isn't very good there because of how much people play the minus DP. And let's not forget that actually Chimeramon was released in BT8 as well. So actually basically almost every deck actually can play some sort of minus DP. So armor decks don't receive a lot of like much of their benefits or their stickiness in Singapore. So thus people actually don't play armor as much here. But I can understand why your side will actually play more armor because of its aggressiveness. And I can't deny that it's actually quite a strong deck. So I actually put in tier A myself. Yeah.
yes, we saw that. And do you think that the blue iris with the freeze mechanic is good against decks like armor rush? Because if you trust their level 3s, the armor parts do not work.
Right, definitely. So I agree with you. Blue Hybrid definitely has an edge against the armor because of how they basically override the mechanic of armor for them. And they don't really have a way to what's the word called? Progress if they were not to play any form of level 5 because once they are on their level 4s, they don't usually have a much of a follow-up unless they do play the Chimeramon or the Shakomon. So I would say the blue hybrid does have a very favorable matchup against the armor rush. So yeah. And let's not forget that they do play Beowulfmon, which actually does bounce a level 4 on the field. So they can actually bounce the armor Digimon straight away, and that actually hurts them a lot because of how much resources needed to actually come out with the body in the first place.
That's why, for example, we maintain the blue hybrids in the tier A. That it's because that here will be a lot of people playing armor rush, so the counter deck maybe will be maintaining blue hybrids.
Definitely, yeah. So if you do have a local that actually have a lot of armor Digimons, I would say Blue Hybrid really stand a good chance, and I wouldn't even be surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that you guys put it in A because of how much interaction it can actually do against the armor. So yeah, definitely is I would understand why you actually put it in tier A.
And about the control decks, we have put it in A, like the security control or the hybrids, yellow hybrids, because here people play control decks, but we are more aggro, and there in Singapore there are more control decks or more aggro or combo
Right.
in locals.
Okay, I'll have to be honest when we talk about control decks, right? Security control in particular, the deck is not exactly cheap, because of all the exalt defeats,
Yes.
the mana injumons. It's not exactly a very cheap deck. So I would say not a lot of my locals actually play them. But however, when they do play them, it's actually a very annoying deck, and people will tend to take into consideration the matchups. So I would say security control is still very popular in Singapore, but however, I would say at BT8, I would say Mastimon and Impedramon are the more popular ones because of how much things they can do. Because security control, most of the time, they are pretty much like a sitting duck, I would say, because they are just healing, stalling out the game. And at our locals, we do have a time limit, and they are not usually very favorable when they play security control because if they were to play out of time, they will actually lose or rather get a draw because they actually couldn't complete the game. Because we usually play a best of 3 here. Yeah, so it used to be a popular deck in Singapore for sure. But however, when BT8 came out, definitely people start playing the new decks like whatever BT8 came out with. Like we can say like XND Bodies, Black Wall Grey, Mastemon, and also actually Build Star as well. So I would say combo decks like Mastemon is much more popular in Singapore for sure.
So you put the yellow hybrids on tier S alongside with Imperial and Mastodon. It's because of animal?
Okay. For me, right, when I consider the deck list for yellow hybrid, I'll say because yellow hybrid has a very consistent healing potential, and they do still have access to Susanomon. Even though the Mega Digimon Fusion has been banned, and I actually consider it in the ban list already, they are still able to play 60% win rate, which is the card introduced in EX01. They actually reduce the cost by 4. So the next time the Susanomon come out, it will be just with 3 costs. And having dual tamers and memory boost in the deck, they can have that kind of memory to actually go to the Susanomon. And let's not forget they do have Rapidmon, which is actually a very decent counter against armor. Because it's still the minus DP that really hurts the armor Digimons a lot. And the particular, or rather the specific deck list that I shared on my Twitter, the yellow hybrid, they do play the purple Hikari, which actually give minus memory when they do reduce the security. So actually, the purple Hikari is actually a very strong counter against the Impedramon matchup. Because Impedramon, they usually do want to play very aggressive and they do want to swing first before they go for their Joker's Evolution. And with Hikari, right, they actually do need to play Hammer Spark beforehand, and not all the games they will have it. So that's why I put a Yellow Hybrid quite high tier because it has a very decent counter against Mastemon and Impedramon. So it is a formidable deck, in my opinion.
Yes, we here in Europe with the news with the new limits and new bans. For example, like Ice Wolf, a lot of people that plays decks like Cherubimon or Purple Agro or Lilith or Yellow Hybrid. Everyone plays with the Purple Hikari. It's like it's not like Ice Wolf, but when you have the 4 Hikaris on the play zone, it's very hard to attack the player.
Yes, that's correct. So if the opponent somehow had a 4 Hikari on field, like what you mentioned, it is really annoying for the opponent player to actually hit or rather progress in the game, because every time they hit, they will just minus 4 memory, which is not a lot, which is like a lot lah. Yeah.
Another deck that it's super popular here that we don't see in your tier list is Diaboromon.
Oh, Diaboromon, right. Okay. So okay,
sorry.
let me just start by saying that Diaboromon, right? It was released all the way back in BT5, if I'm not mistaken. As in, it was released in BTO2, but then it received support in BTO5. I
Yes.
personally tried Diaboromon myself, but the deck did not give me the best experience. Yeah, and I do have a few friends who actually also try to attempt to make Diaboromon good, but because of how fast the meta was, like given like there were the blue hybrids, there were the blue bond, and there was also the security
Yes.
control. Diaboromon really didn't stand a chance in that meta because it has consistency issues. That's one. And it doesn't have much impact. I mean, the best play for Diaboromon, in my opinion, would be the Diaboromon with the security attack, the promo version. That was the best Diaboromon play
But
that was.
but
Yeah,
the one in EX01, the one
right.
that give blocker, it's super annoying when they have like 5 or 6 token and the blocker one.
Yeah, I do agree that if they do have the Diaboromon tokens on the field and they do have the blocker, it's definitely gonna be annoying. But my issue with that is that getting there is a tough thing to do already. Like for you to even get 2 to 3 tokens and then not dying already is a tough I'll say thing to do lah for Diaboromon. And it's not
Another
popular in Singapore as well.
here there are a lot of people that loves the Awaramon, and they try the deck every single new release. They try again.
Right.
Another thing we have seen, for example, is like in the first weekend of the meta, there is a lot of people playing green in the Japanese meta. Like for example, in BT8, there was a lot of people in the top list with the Shibamon deck, but
Right.
only the first week. It's like something that we seen strange. It's that for some reason.
Okay, Shivamon, right? It's actually a very decent counter against Security Control, which was actually one of the more popular decks then. And Shivamon is also a counter towards Mastemon because Mastemon they do require to actually go up to their Mastemon first before they can actually deal with the Shivamon. However, when the Shivamon comes down early, they do shut down the potential of Dead or Alive, Hell Death Scythe, and also the Chaos Degrade. So all these options will not be possible. And Yellow Hybrid also do struggle against Shivamon because of how much because of how Shivamon works. They do block the options, that's one, and they also discard the security without checking them. So basically, sometimes the Yellow Hybrid players they do have tamers in the security, but however with Shivamon they do remove them. So I would understand why Shivamon was actually a very popular pick then.
Okay, and another question about the meta. It's with X antibody. You have in BT8 you have like 2 options, because you can play the Alphamon version and the Dorugoramon version.
Right.
Do you think one is better than other? For what we've seen, we think the Alphamon version is more consistent. But what's your opinion about that?
Give me a moment. Let me go see BT8, the option. I would say I do prefer the.
I have it here.
Oh, okay,
New one.
can.
Yes. Here. The option. The new option. Not this.
Okay, if you guys are talking about this specific option, right, it actually can fit into both version of deck, which is the BT7 one, which is called Dorugoromon, and also the Alphamon. I would say in Singapore, right, most players actually sway towards the Dorugoromon instead of the Alphamon, because of the Alphamon having DP issues, even though it does have a very strong effect or synergy with Orumon, whereby you can restand and gain a bunch of memory at the end of the attack. It does struggle still against decks like Mastemon, whereby they do play Chaos Degrade. Because in BT8, Alphamon, they don't have protection against the Chaos Degrade, and when you do swing at the security, it does instantly die. So the popular choice usually be the Dorugoramon because of how much DP it does have. The reliability and the consistency of the DP is actually what separates the Alphamon and the Dorugamon, in my opinion. And let's not forget that Dorugoramon actually can bomb Digimons on the field, as compared to Alphamon, which doesn't really interact much with the board. So if the opponent do go for the flood play, the Alphamon player will actually just be not doing too much on the field, unfortunately.
And we understand that. Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense. And
Right.
there's a player here that asked if what do you think about play Black War Agreement, but instead of playing the red rookies and the Agreement, how it could work with only black?
Okay. For Black War Greymon in BT8, right, it does have a very serious issue of like doing any security check at opponent, because of if you do play for the black base, it does struggle in actually having the DP. That's one. So the what the red side of things actually do offer for the Black War Grey is the fact that it does offer you plus DP. Such as Agumon, it just gives you plus 2k straight away or plus 1k, and the Digitama does give you the drop power or plus 1k DP as well. But for the black base, they don't exactly offer you much DP, and sometimes when you play Black War Greymon, you do want to control the bot, so you do want to swing over your opponent's Mega Digimons and such. But when you don't have the perfect Evo line, especially with the blacklist, you do struggle because 12k DP isn't a lot, and sometimes you do want to actually pressure your opponent's security as well, because if you want to play control, you still need to have a win condition in mind to actually win your opponent by dealing 5 security checks and of course swinging for game. But the Black War Greymon doesn't have any built-in security attack, and that's why the red base was actually considered in my locals, because of how the FC Greymons and the Taichi Tamer do give you the security attack, and it's actually quite strong because once you control the board, you do want to start pressuring your opponent. Yeah, so if you play a pure black base, right, they do struggle a bit, although there are options such as Sunrisermon, but Sunrisermon do require you to be 13k DP at least, which isn't built into the Black War Greymon.
The other option with black will be the Toyagumon with reboot and the Metal Greymon that gives you security attack +1 with half reboot, for example.
Yeah, for that version, right, that's I'll say it's a similar problem to almost like playing Diaboromon, whereby you do really need to hit the specific rookie into the specific champion into the specific ultimate, then you do get all the buff, which is a problem because sometimes in this meta game whereby you're fighting against armor Digimon, for example, they can just evolve to any rookie and then into any armor Digimon and they can start doing their thing. However, if you to play towards what you mentioned, the Toyagumon reboot and the Metal Greymon, which gives you security attack +1 if you do have reboot, you will struggle a bit because of how the consistency issue comes into play.
Yes, we understand that. It's the red one. We think the red one is more consistent, but we want to answer the player's question. So and another one, it's like you put like Lilithmon in SC. Do you think it's going too low for Lilithmon?
Okay. I was actually a Lilithmon player myself in BT8. I do enjoy the deck, but I really realized that the BT8 Lilithmon with the Cerebral Spawn package, it was strong because of the Icemon. So with the ban list coming into play whereby the Icemon is restricted to 1, the Icemon here is actually very significant. So Lilithmon doesn't have the board presence as before. They can't play as greedy. So don't always have level 4 on the field to actually evolve your Cerebral Spawn to a level 5. You do have to play a bit slower, which is the issue because you do have aggressive decks such as the Armor Digimons and Impudramon. And of course, Lilithmon is a deck whereby they do want to play board presence, but against Mastemon, they do actually control the board better than you. So I would say that's why Lilithmon actually struggled a lot in BT8 after the Icemon restriction.
We understand that. Yes, I think it's, and the other big loss for Lilithmon is the Mega Digimon fusion. That's what's.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I can understand the ban, because with the BT9 Greymon and Garurumon, it was like the bad thing about Mega Digimon fusion don't exist. Like you can do Mega Digimon fusion without with any penalty.
That's
I
correct.
think
Because
the
of the Greymon X.
yes, and the altered mode, no, the altered mode have the same effect that
Yes,
the Greymon
correct.
X.
Yeah. The promo version of the Autoros mode does also protect you from Mega Digimon Fusion. So I would say the Mega Digimon Fusion is banned at a very correct timing before it was really abused much further in BT09. But because of their Mega Digimon Fusion being banned, it affected Lilithmon more because that was one of the key pieces for it to actually go into the SWAT play. Yeah, so with the Icemon and Mega Digimon Fusion being hit, Lilithmon really struggled a lot in my opinion.
Another deck of the tier B we have is it's Rasenman. We've seen two versions. Like you can play the yellow base version and the red base version, because in the red version you play like red and yellow, but you play with the Sylphimon and the other red yellow one. I don't remember what was Sylphimon and Chimeramon, I thought. And you play like red rookies, like gives you more DP.
You mean for which deck again? Sorry.
With the Rasenmon, we've seen
Oh, Rasenmon. Yeah.
we seen two versions. We've seen the one with a yellow base, and the one like you play with red base and you play with Rising Raymond and Sylphimon. Sylphimons. I don't know what you call it in the Japanese version.
This one.
The Jogress red yellow from
This one.
Sylphimon.
Sylphimon.
yes. So what do you think is better, like play with yellow rookies or with red ones?
Yellow or red? Okay. I'll be very honest. I don't really have much experience with Rasenmon myself. But I do have two decks that I did post on my Twitter regarding the Rasenmon Fury mode deck, and both of them actually do play the yellow base. So I would say yellow base do offer better consistency because they do have options towards like the blinding light, which is one of the best options to play because if you want to play an aggressive deck, you do want the memory as well. But the problem with red base is that it just offer raw power and raw security checks, but it doesn't offer you the sort of control that sometimes you do want. So I will actually prefer yellow base in my opinion.
Understood too. And what is your opinion of the new Cherubimon, the yellow one that you can use to break the it's any popular, the Cherubimon deck in Singapore?
Okay, that's the irony, or rather the funny part. I realize Cherubimon has been a very popular deck in the English side of things.
Yes.
But it's not actually a deck considered in my locals ban. But the thing is because we did not play with the ban list then. So we had a lot of blue hybrids with Mega Digimon Fusion to the Susanomon. We had a lot of yellow hybrid who play Mega Digimon Fusion as well. So Cherubimon did not stand a chance against those decks at all. So that's why nobody actually played them. But when you ask me about the yellow Cherubimon, I would say actually it's one of the good cards to play, especially with board hungry BT8 meta, whereby a lot of Digimons will be on the playing zone. So when you do apply the security attack -2 debuff on them, they actually can hurt them. And you actually can stall the game as well.
I think it. Another popular deck was the the Metal Garurumon from BT1 with the Shakumon. I see it a lot.
Yeah.
It's any good against the tier 1 decks. For example, it's any good deck against Paildramon or Mastimon.
I would say in terms of consistency, it comes to mind as well. Metal Gurumon for the BTO one, it does require you to actually have the Gurumon champion from BTO one in the Digisource in the first place to actually flood the board. So I would say comparing it to the Mastemon and the Imperdramon, it does not does struggle a bit because of how consistent the other decks are. And let's not forget that Mastemon do have a very good board control thanks to the Mastemon itself. So the bodies that you do come out with the Metal Gurumon won't really stand a chance. Yeah, but it's actually a very fun deck lah, nonetheless.
We've seen it at least a lot of times in a lot of videos, like people play it. So that's why we want to ask if it's any good against the meta or not.
Definitely will struggle lah.
Okay, so what if we talk from about these decks, both with the mulligan and the side rule? Do you play with that rules in your local anytime?
We do actually start playing the mulligan rule in my locals as well, but not the sideboard, because sideboard is a much more complicated rule and it's not official yet. So that's why the shops in Singapore, they actually don't want to adopt this new ruling because it's actually very tough to force the players to actually play the sideboard ruling. But the mulligan one is much more easier to execute because it's just there's no need for you to modify your deck. It's just to have an additional step when you start the game. Yeah.
So, what's your opinion about the mulligan, for example?
I would say the mulligan. I would say the mulligan is actually a very good addition. Because it does gives you consistency for most of the decks. Like for example, when you're playing the Imperdramon, for example, you do want to hit into your rookies and your XV mons and your level 5. But however, there are always hands whereby you just start off with level 6 and level 7, and it's not a hand that you want to start the game with. So the mulligan really helps you make sure that you don't actually have this kind of bad games. And also, let's talk about Armor Digimon as well. So you do always want to have Vmon in your starting hand, and with the mulligan, you can actually have much more consistency when you do mulligan, of course. But the sideboard is the one that I would say is the more, what's the word called? Harder to imagine because there's a lot of ways, or rather a lot of factors to consider when you do want to sideboard, because you have to really depend on your locals. Like for example, if I know for example, for your locals, that a lot of people are actually playing the Armor Digimons. So as a Bastemon player, I'll actually start to play more reduced DP kind of cards to actually make sure that the Armor Digimons will be dealt with. So, but the thing is, not always you want to play these kind of options in your deck. So that, I mean, how do I say? The sideboard really opens up a lot because you can actually counter most of your matchups, which you usually struggle against. Yeah.
Yeah, we trade for example, we trade the side rule within the first tournament, and a lot of players say that it's really hard to decide what cards they should have in the side deck because sometimes they don't. A lot of times they feel like when they change their decks, they are making their deck a little bit worse, that they lose some consistency. And
definitely. Sorry. Yeah. Continue.
No. What I want to say is it's the last actualization we have about the side rule. It's like they reduced side deck from 10 to 5 for the latest big tournament.
Okay.
So
Sorry, can
now,
I have the question again?
yes, what I was saying is like players feel with the side ruling, they are losing consistency in their decks when they change card.
Right.
So what do you think about that? So you think you can lose some consistency in your deck, changing the cards?
Definitely, because when you do have the option to sideboard, it opens up a lot of questions that you have to answer. Like, what would I do if I were to fight this specific matchup? What would I have to do when I fight this specific matchup? But there's so much to consider that it will of course ruin the consistency of the deck, because you are not sure whether these cards actually fully answers the specific matchup. And of course, when you do look at the 50 card deck in itself, the deck is already built with consistency in mind, so there isn't really much tech option space in the first place. So definitely when you do play sideboard, you will realize that by hard countering this specific matchup, you're actually taking out cards that actually already are like the basics of the deck already. So I can understand why it's actually an issue, I would say, when you do sideboard and you do realize that your deck is facing some consistency issues.
And what do you think about the mulligan rule with greedy decks? For example, X Antibody or War Raymond, that can kill you in one turn with a good setup. Do you think?
Definitely, yeah, I understand your question. So definitely, I would say that mulligan really helps this kind of deck, especially in BT09. So sorry to jump into BT09. Like Granny's Kuagamon, a deck whereby you can do 6 security checks in one Digimon, and the only issue for the deck is to be more consistent. So the mulligan rule actually helps them so much until the fact that you can actually die to them in turn 3, and it's not exactly very fun. So mulligan does help a certain deck more than it helps other deck. So like for example, when you look at security control, when you do have the option to mulligan, the mulligan hand will be going to the bottom of the deck, and those 5 cards that you want will not be seeing play until the late game, I would say. So it hurts the security control player more sometimes, because the 5 cards is just going to the bottom of the deck. So the mulligan actually benefits more of the OTK, or rather the big single Digimon decks, like what you mentioned, the X Antibody, and of course in BT09 the Granny Squagamon.
For example, here in Europe, red hybrids are having played more with ancient version than the Emperor version, that was played more in Japan and Singapore, I think, or they play both versions at the same time, more or less.
I would say the Ancient and Emperor version is played together more, because of how Emperor Kaiser Grey does struggle a bit in setting up, because they do require 5 hybrid Digimons in the drop zone. So it's not exactly very easy for the deck, even though there's options to play Analog Boy. But if you were to play Ancient Greymon and you do have the promo champion Agunimon, you do do a lot of damage in the first few turns while setting up a drop zone as well. So that's why I would say the combination of Kaiser Grey and of course the Ancient Grey is a much more popular option.
Yes, and here with the mulligan, it was very popular. We've seen some tops with the red hybrids, because when you can change your hand, search for the combination on the first turn, you simply set for make the ancient team turn 2. So it was really fast.
Yes, definitely. So when you do have mulligan considered, red hybrid definitely is one of the better decks to play because of how fast, like in turn 2, they can just do 3 security checks already, and that's quite a lot.
So, do you think some decks may change the position you put in your tier list with the mulligan rule? So, do you consider some changes with if you have that rule official?
Okay, I understand. Actually, I would say there's not much changes, even if the mulligan rule does apply, because the mulligan rule actually affects everybody. So everybody will have like a decent hand to play the game. Even though, I would say Red Hybrid, they can get into a very strong high roll, like for example, going to Ancient Grey early and then ending the game with Kaiser Grey. I see, like with that kind of improved consistency, it can be quite scary. But however, we must also look at how the other decks will also become more scarier as well. Given that they will have improved consistency, that's one. And if they know that Red Hybrid is actually a popular deck, they will actually change their list to play more towards blocker, because blocker is something that Ancient Grey do struggle quite a bit, I would say. So definitely the meta, I mean the tier list won't change too much with the mulligan considered.
So, you don't consider, for example, like security control would be at the same level with, for example, Mastemon if you have mulligan, no? So you think it's still a little bit worse.
Yes. So the thing is, because for the mulligan rule in Digimon specifically, you are supposed to throw all the hand to the bottom of the deck and then drawing the same 5 cards. The thing is, you are not able to handpick what kind of cards you want. So for example, for security control, like if I'm playing security control, if I do see the BT8 TK Tamer in my starting hand, I will just not change the hands. But then if I don't see it, I'll have to change the hand. But let's just say the hand does have like the recovery options. But because I need to see a TK in my starting hand, I have to put all my security that heals me back to the bottom of the deck, and that's actually quite tough lah. Yeah, I think like it will be quite a struggle. The mulligan don't really always help you.
Yes, we experiment that in some decks you have a really bad hand, but you have like some cards that you need in the hand. Like
Yes.
for example, I was playing a Blue Ivy, and I have no rookie, no tamer, but I have 3 Korikakus in my hand. I need this. If I don't check my hand, I have to play. I don't have nothing to play, and it was
Exactly.
a hard decision.
Definitely. So yeah, that's the problem with mulligan. So it can improve the consistency for sure, but sometimes it will actually hurt you more. Like for example of the example you gave just now. So yeah, that's the thing about mulligan.
Yeah, we consider when within BT7, we consider that the mulligan rule can improve a little bit. For example, decks like Gizmon that you need a very good starting hand to make your OTK. But we consider too that we can have like 2 or 3 Gizmon in our starting hand and send back to the bottom, and that hurts a lot.
Yeah, that will definitely hurt a lot. So it's not 100% helping you, the mulligan. So you really have to see your luck. Yeah, if you're starting hand, like what you mentioned, has 2 to 3 just spawn and you don't have rookies, you can't actually possibly mulligan that, because if you do go for the mulligan, you're actually throwing 3 just spawn to the bottom of the deck and you might not ever see them again.
And another interesting question is, what's the most strange deck you have seen in the BT8 meta without the restriction when you on your locals?
Sure. Okay, but I would say that for BT8 meta in my locals, we actually only experience it for 1 month. That's when the EX02 comes in. But the most interesting deck that actually I've seen in my locals will actually be the Skull Knight Mon Zwat. Yeah, they actually play Skull Knightmon with Sword package. The one with the Mega Digimon Fusion. So it's actually very interesting because of how Skull Knightmon works. It actually has a very decent level 5 beefy body, and if you deal with that body, it does split into 2 more Digimons. So it can be aggressive and also sticky at the same time, but it also have the option to go towards a control kind of idea.
The question is because we were talking before about strange decks, some strange decks we've seen before, and we was talking about Jogre's Chimeramon with the Eosmon and the
Kurisarimon?
the Kurisarimon that give rush to the Digimons with the same name.
Right.
So, for example, when you digivolve that Chimeramon into the level 6 Eosmon, every single Eosmon with level 5 that you play have rush, so you can attack, play another Earthmon, attack, and play another Earthmon, and attack till you have no hand.
Yes. But the problem with that will be to actually reach there in the first place. But yeah, that is actually one of the, I would say, cool idea for Eosmon and Chimeramon with the level 4 Diabromon champion.
So
Yes, it's like Chimeramon allows you a lot of
strange decks.
Combos.
Yes, a lot of rare combos. Like you can do everything with your level 4s. Like we've seen that in BT9 decks with the Skull Knightmon that gives security +1 to the cards with Knightmon in the decks. Play with the Yellow Lord Knightmon, so you can attack with security +1 and play another Knightmon. For example, we have seen that like the Japanese or not Japanese people, but the people that play Japanese meta do a lot of they try a lot of different combinations.
Are you asking me if they do try a lot of different combinations?
No, I'm saying that they do a lot of strange combinations, and the question is that do you try something that you feel that it's that kind of strange? So do you play a deck that you feel it's not a meta deck, it's not a normal deck, it's like I do this just for experimentation?
It honestly has to depends on the player, of course. If the player does have the intention to just win the prize, they wouldn't actually try this kind of combo decks. But I do have a few friends who actually do like to play this kind of combo. Like as I mentioned, the Chimeramon and the Eosmon, they actually do try this before. But of course, it does have a problem with consistency, and they don't really see too much top, unfortunately.
One question we have here, when Icewall was at 4 copies, every deck abused a lot of the 4 copies, but we see in BT8 you have the 4 copies of Icewall, but you really don't play 4 copies. Do you think what do you think about this? Do you think there in your meta or your like with your play style is you want to abuse less wall, or what do you think about the go with 4 copies of Ice Wall in BT8 meta?
So what do I think of the 4 ISO in BTO meta? It was definitely one of the most annoying cards to deal with for sure. Especially when Impodramon and Blue Hybrid can actually play them as well. And it's the one of the cards that actually stopped Lilithmon from actually being relevant too because of the Cerebrusmon combo. So To be honest, I'm very glad they actually hit the Ice War, because Ice War was actually the number one discussion in my meta when it comes to being annoying, because it really just quite brainless, whereby you just cast one card for one memory only. You do get a bunch of benefit from that, and in the security as well, it also acts like a hammer spark, so it's very annoying. It really limits a lot of combo, and especially in mirror matches, Imperdramon against the Imperdramon, whoever can cast the Ice Wall first do get the advantage, because they are not able to swing accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the worst cards ever made by Bandai, sadly. But I think I'm glad they actually hit it to 1, and we don't actually see much Ice War being played now already.
I think the problem with that card is the wording, because if they write that card like a normal memory gain, like if instead of losing memory, if you gain memory, that you can block that card with a memory blocker like Gashimon or Modoki Petamon.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Not sure why they actually put it to lose memory instead of gain memory, like I mentioned. So if it was gain memory, I think it would have been better. But I think they basically they created this option to help Blue, because Blue didn't really have a lot of like defensive options, unlike Red and the other colors, whereby they do have some sort of destruction, and Blue have only bouncers. So they came out with this Ice War to actually help the blue color to actually stall the game. But unfortunately, it got abused so hard. Everybody started playing 4 of it, and I would say it's also because of it being 1 cost only, which is very little, and it can be abused much more in a turn.
There are people here, when we see a strange deck in the meta review, in the list of winning decks, that people say that there in Singapore, Japan, etc., there are a little less people than in other places playing in locals, and that's because that's the reason that deck win. How many people should be in locals, more or less, in your locals?
So sorry, I do not get the question.
How many people often do you go to your locals?
We do have 20 plus players usually, and but the thing is, we do have COVID measures, because it was during the period of COVID-19, and for Singapore, right, they are actually pretty strict with their COVID measures. Like for example, we are only able to allow to have like 4 people at one time. So for our tournament scene, it was really badly affected. Unlike in Europe and in, of course, US, whereby there was, I would say, not much COVID measures, whereby the tournament still can run as freely as possible. We didn't really had too much players at the scene, and for Digimon in particular, the game isn't actually as popular as in Europe and in America, I would say.
Just here, there are a lot of people playing. Like we have locals with 25 plus people.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, when we have the COVID measures, the limit was 16. So the biggest tournament was 60. But when they relaxed the laws for the COVID, yes, we start to have tournaments like with 20, 25, 27.
That's nice.
So we have a lot of people playing here.
For Singapore, they just actually announced the relaxation of the COVID rules. So we are actually also hoping to see more players coming to the local scene.
But I just want to ask before, when he talks about the players, it's like we've seen like in tournaments that there are less people, the winner decks tends to be not the not the normal ones. So you can see tournaments with 4 or 5 people or 6 people win with decks like Machine Ramon or Cherubimon or Rasenmon.
Understand.
So do you think like small tournaments benefits that kind of decks?
Actually, you have to depends because like even if the locals are small, if you were to just put one guy with Impudramon inside that 7-man local, for example, the Impudramon would still be able to win the game, and the Rasenmon, like what you mentioned just now, wouldn't really have the advantage. So I don't think having small locals does give the benefit of the rogue decks to win. It of course have to see what kind of decks everybody else is playing, because usually for small locals, right, they might not have the same motivation to play the meta decks. They might want to, like, to them could be just like a friendly hangout. Everybody just want to play cards together, so they will just play the decks that they want to play instead of actually playing decks that actually are the meta one.
Understood. So for last question, we have to ask something about the BT9. We see that there is a little domination with the Alpha Monoryuken right now in the meta. So do you think there's gonna be some kind of ban, a new ban list for a new change?
I would say there won't be a ban list, just because there are actually other decks that are winning as well. So the idea behind the ban list of Mega Digimon Fusion, the Icemon, the Ice War, all these they come into consideration because there were so many tournament topping with these kind of cards. But for Alphamon Oryuken, even though it's actually very strong, like what you mentioned just now, it's a dominating deck in BT9 currently, not gonna lie. But it does have its own problem whereby it's actually quite slow as well. So people can actually start playing decks that are faster, like Granny's Kuwagamon, for example, that can actually deal with Alphamon. So I wouldn't say there will be a restriction list coming anytime soon. But however, when the BT9 drops at Europe and of course US, where there are much more bigger crowd for Bandai to actually look at, that is where the restriction rule might actually be considered. Yeah.
So thank you a lot for coming today and talk with us in within the BT8 meta. We appreciate a lot because here at least in our community and our friend groups, we love to see the videos of your channel. So really thank you for coming today.
Yep.
And if in some point you want to make something with the English meta, you can count on us if you want.
Sure, definitely. I want to say thank you guys for actually giving me the opportunity as well to actually reach out to me to talk about the BT8 meta, because like what I mentioned, I'm the Singapore Asian Digimon channel, so I actually have already played BT8. So not many, I'll say, content creators will actually come look for me in terms of content. So I'll say thank you guys for actually reaching out to me, and I really appreciate your kind words to actually saying that you guys enjoy the content that I do put out.
Yes, we love your videos.
Yes.
And as we say, if anytime you want to do any content within the English meta, you can reach us for sure.
Can definitely.
Okay, so thanks for the video and bye bye.